The sun leaned heavy over the high desert, bleeding orange and gold across the jagged ridges of the Sierra Blanca. The sky stretched wide and endless, the kind of blue that only belonged to the Wild West, where man seemed small and the land eternal. Dust clung to the wind, carried from the endless trails beaten by wagon wheels and the hooves of cattle and mustangs alike. Coyotes cried in the distance, and the river, swollen from late spring melt, thundered like a furious beast cutting its way through rock and canyon. On that riverbank stood Ranger Elias Boone, a man carved by frontier life, with eyes the color of storm clouds and a frame built from long years of riding hard trails. He wasn't a lawman bound to a single town, but a ranger, roaming the wild country where no sheriff's badge had weight. Boone's duty was to the land itself, to settlers trying to survive it, to the wild things that prowled its edges, and sometimes, to justice when men failed to bring it. That evening, as dusk crawled low, Boone's stallion, a coal-black gelding named Thunder, stopped sharp at the river bend. The animal's ears pricked forward, muscles quivering. Boone eased his hat back and followed the stallion's gaze. The sound reached him first. A ragged, guttural roar carried over the river's rush. Then he saw it a mountain lion, its golden hide slicked with water, claws raking helplessly as the current dragged it downstream. The beast was fighting death with every ounce of sinew, but the river was merciless, foaming white over hidden rocks. "Easy, boy," Boone muttered to Thunder, swinging down from the saddle. His boots hit the earth with a thud. He stepped closer to the bank, scanning the waters with the sharp eyes of a hunter and the instinct of a man who had spent more time in wilderness than in town. The lion's head broke the surface again. It wasn't just panic in the animal's eyes. It was desperation, a raw plea that struck Boone harder than he'd expected. Men would say, let nature take its course. That one less predator meant safer cattle. But Boone had lived long enough to know every creature had its place. And sometimes, a man's heart moved faster than reason. Hell. Boone growled under his breath. He ripped the coiled lariat from his saddle and tested its weight. Then he scrambled down the bank, boots sliding on loose shale, until he stood near the river's foam. Water sprayed against him, cold and violent. Timing was everything. Too early and he'd miss, too late and the lion would vanish into the rapids. He swung the rope high, the loop cutting a dark arc against the last blaze of sunset. With a sharp flick, he cast it forward. The loop landed just ahead of the lion. For a breathless second, Boone thought it was wasted. But then the current shoved the animal through, and the rope caught tight around its chest. The lion roared, thrashing, but Boone planted his heels deep into mud and stone. His arms strained, muscles burning. A river tried to rip the beast away. "Come on," he snarled through clenched teeth, hauling inch by inch, until the animal's claws scraped shallow water near the bank. The lion collapsed on the stones, chest heaving, its golden body trembling with exhaustion. Boone kept the rope taut, careful. Close quarters with a cornered predator could turn bloody fast. But the lion only stared at him, wild eyes locking with human ones. And in that strange silence Boone felt something shift. He had pulled life from death's current, and the animal seemed to know it. Thunder whinnied nervously on the ridge above. Boone slowly loosened the rope, then stepped back. The lion staggered to its paws, shaking river water from its coat. Instead of fleeing, it held Boone's gaze a moment longer. Then it turned, limping into the brush, swallowed by the growing night. Boone exhaled, wiping cold sweat from his brow. "Well," he muttered to himself, "that's a story no one believe." But the story was only beginning. The trail to Dustwood, by the time Boone rode into Dustwood, night had taken the land. The town was little more than a scar on the frontier. Two crooked streets lined with false, front buildings, the glow of lanterns bleeding from saloon windows, the smell of whiskey and gun oil thick on the air. The kind of town where a man could vanish or die, depending on the cards he was dealt. Boone tied Thunder outside the Silver Spur saloon. Inside, the air churned with smoke, laughter, and the tinny plunk of piano keys. Cowboys crowded the bar, ranchers swapped lies over cheap whiskey, and in the corner, a pair of card sharps eyed their marks like vultures. Boone pushed through, his long coat brushing sawdust, his presence drawing quiet nods from those who knew his kind. Rangers were respected, sometimes feared, men who answered to no mayor or marshal, but to the law of survival. At the far end of the bar, Sheriff Cole Anders nursed a glass. Thick-shouldered, with a jaw like quarried stone and eyes that never seemed to blink, Anders was Dustwood's anchor. Trouble had a way of finding him, but so did Boone, and the two had traded more than one favor on trails where law and outlaw blurred. "You look like hell, Boone," Anders said as the ranger slewed onto the stool beside him. "River tried to drown me," Boone replied evenly, signaling the barkeep. Or maybe it was the cat in it. Anders arched a brow. "Cat. Mountain lion." Pulled it out before the current tore it apart. A few men nearby chuckled. "Boone, you tellin' us you lassoed a cougar like some wayward calf?" "Believe what you want," Boone said, taking a long pull of whiskey. "But I reckon that cat'll remember me." Anders studied him, then shrugged. "You always did keep stranger company than most. But you didn't ride in here just to drink. What brings you to Dustwood?" Boone leaned close. His voice dropped, steady as a hammer striking iron. "I heard talk on the trail. Outlaws riding under the banner of Clay McGraw. You know him?" The sheriff's expression darkened. "Know him? Hell, everyone this side of the Rio knows McGraw. Rustler killer, son of a devil. Last word had him and his gang south, but if he's drifted north." Anders let the thought die. "Word is," Boone said, "McGraw ain't rustlin' cattle no more. He's huntin' something bigger." Anders frowned. "Bigger?" Before Boone could answer, the saloon doors slammed open. A boy no older than 12 stumbled inside, face pale, breath ragged. "Sheriff!" he cried. "Sheriff Anders! They came!" "Raiders. Burned Pie's place." Anders shot up from his stool, hand falling to the iron on his hip. "Who?" The boy's eyes brimmed with terror. "McGraw's men." The saloon went silent, every glass lowered, every chair creaking as men shifted. The name carried weight, like a storm on the horizon. Boone rose, two eyes narrowing. The frontier had many predators. Some walked on 4 legs. Some rode horses and carried iron. And sometimes, Boone thought grimly, it was hard to tell the difference. A blood on the prairie. They rode out at dawn. Boone alongside Sheriff Anders and 6 hastily gathered men from town. The prairie stretched endless before them, painted silver by morning mist. The boy guided them, his small frame stiff in the saddle, grief sharpening his every word. By noon they found the smoke. Black plumes rose against the sky, marking what had once been a ranch. Charred timbers sagged in the ruins of the homestead, wagons smashed, livestock scattered. A grave silence lay heavy, broken only by the distant caw of crows. Boone dismounted, boots crunching in the ash. He knelt, fingers brushing tracks in the dirt. Horses, 8, maybe 10, heavy riders. Wagon ruts, 2 something hauled away. Anders cursed low, "Survivors." The boy's voice cracked. "Mao, my sisters, they took 'em." The boo's jaw tightened. He stood, dust rising around him. His eyes caught something strange, prints near the edge of the ruins, larger than a man's boot. Pause. A lion's. His pulse quickened. Could it be the same cat from the river? He crouched, tracing the trail. The paw prints didn't lead away. They circled the ruins, as if the beast had stalked the raiders themselves. "Boone?" Anders asked. "Tracks." Boone muttered. "Lion's been here. Fresh. Damnedest thing. I think it followed the outlaws." Anders spat. "We don't have time to chase ghost cats." Boone straightened, steel in his gaze. "Maybe not. But sometimes, Sheriff, the wild runs its own justice." The boy's voice trembled, but carried resolve. "We have to get them back." Boone laid a hand on the boy's shoulder. "We will. But you need to understand, men like McGraw don't leave mercy in their wake." The boy met his eyes, young but fierce. "Then we'll bring none either." Boone studied him a moment longer, then swung back into Thunder's saddle. The trail was fresh. The hunt was on. The riders thundered across open plains through gulches carved by wind and time. Hours bled into miles, the sun burning overhead. Boone rode at the lead, senses sharp, every whisper of the land feeding his pursuit. Dust hung thick behind them, banners of determination and vengeance. As night neared, and they crested a ridge, and saw fires in the valley below. McGraw's camp. Tents sprawled in a crooked circle, horses tethered, men laughing loud around spits of roasting meat. Boone's eyes narrowed. There were women there, bound near the wagons. And among the shadows he saw movement, sleek, golden, silent. The lion. It prowled the edges of camp, eyes glinting like twin embers. Not striking, not fleeing, watching. And Boone, for reasons he couldn't name, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. The cat he'd saved had followed him into the heart of danger. And soon, blood would spill, man's, maybe beasts', maybe both. Boone touched the rifle slung across his back, his voice low and steady. Sheriff, it's time. And in the valley below, destiny coiled like a rattlesnake, waiting to strike. The moon rose full over the valley, spilling silver across the outlaw camp. Smoke curled from dying fires, laughter rang crude and careless, and the bound women sat silent in the dirt, fear their only companion. Boone and Sheriff Anders crouched on the ridge above, 7 men behind them, every rifle steady, every breath tight with nerves. Boone scanned the camp, eyes narrowing on Clay McGraw himself. The outlaw leader sat like a king among his scoundrels, broad-shouldered, scar slashed across his cheek, black hat pulled low. He carved meat from the spit with the same knife he used on men, chewing slow, eyes always watchful. Boone had tracked killers before, but McGraw carried himself with something worse than brutality, certainty, the kind of certainty that made men follow him into hell. Beside the campfires, Boone spotted it again, the golden shadow, sleek and silent. The lion prowled the edges, circling, eyes locked not on the captives, but on McGraw's men. Boone's pulse quickened. It wasn't coincidence. The beast was hunting. Boone, Anders whispered, rifle cocked, would take now. The Boone weighed the ground below, outlaws drunk but armed. Civilians bound in the crossfire's path, his jaw clenched. Not yet. Wait for the fire to burn lower. Wait for the lion. Anders shot him a look. The lion? Boone didn't answer. He wasn't sure himself why he said it, only that the night carried a tension bigger than men with guns. The wilderness had its own rhythm, and sometimes man's justice needed a wild hand. The first shot, the moment came when a drunk outlaw staggered from the fire, pistol loose in hand. He kicked dirt at the captives, drawing laughter. The boy who had ridden with Boone trembled with rage beside him. Boone held him still with a hand, then raised his own rifle. The shot cracked like thunder. The outlaw jerked back, dropped his pistol and crumpled into the dust. For a breath, the camp froze. Then the night exploded in gunfire. Rangers. Someone bellowed. Men scrambled, whiskey spilling, chairs flying. Rifles spat flame, bullets slicing through the dark. Boone's posse fired from the ridge, shots precise, cutting down 2 more raiders before they could mount up. Boone rose in the chaos. Voice of steel, whippy. Push him. Move down. The posse surged with him, charging into the valley. Thunder's hooves pounded beside him, the stallion a black blur in moonlight. Boone's rifle cracked again, dropping a man as he reached for a shotgun. Anders was a hammer at his side, revolvers blazing, teeth gritted in grim fury. But the outlaws were wolves cornered, fighting wild, firing into the night, some rushing to the captives to use as shields. And then it came, the roar, not of men, not of guns, but of the river-born beast. The lion strikes. The lion leapt from the shadows with terrifying grace, its golden body crashing into a raider mid-charge. The man screamed once before the cat's jaws crushed his throat. Panic tore through the outlaws. Cougar! Cougar in camp! The lion turned blood on its muzzle, eyes glowing like fire. It roared again, and the sound cut deeper than bullets, scattering men who had faced death, but never the fury of nature itself. Boone's rifle thundered, Anders' pistols spat fire, and between the storm of lead and the lion's charge, the outlaws faltered. Horses screamed and tore free, scattering into the night. Raiders tripped over one another, some fleeing, others firing wildly into darkness. McGraw himself rose, steady amid chaos, revolver in each hand. His voice boomed over the madness. Hold! Damn your coward hides! It's just a cat! Kill it! Kill them all! The lion's roar drowned him, but Boone heard, and Boone answered. Boone vs. McGraw. The world shrank to 2 men. Boone swung from Thunder's saddle, rolling into the dust as McGraw's bullets cracked past. He came up behind an overturned wagon, rifle empty, revolver in hand. McGraw strode into the firelight, calm as death. Boone, he drawled. I was wondering who'd be fool enough to come. Ranger, lawless lawman? Heard you were stubborn, but not stupid. Funny. Boone said, voice low, steady. I heard the same about you. They moved like predators, circling, guns raised. The campfire snapped between them, painting faces in orange flame. Around them, Anders and the posse traded shots with the gang, the lion slashing through men who strayed too far. But here, in the ring of firelight, it was dual, pure and simple. McGraw fired first, fast as lightning. Boone dove, the bullet sparking against iron. He rolled, came up firing, his shot grazing McGraw's arm, spinning him half around. McGraw grinned through the pain, teeth bared. "That all you got, Ranger?" Boone didn't answer. He waited, breathing slow, gun steady. McGraw charged, reckless fury, both pistols blazing. Boone dropped, rolled under the wagon, came up on the other side, and fired point blank. The bullet hit McGraw square in the chest. He staggered, spat blood, yet didn't fall. His grin turned wild. "Takes more'n one shot to kill Clay McGraw." The lion ended the words. It leapt from the shadows, a golden fury smashing into McGraw. The outlaw's scream split the night as claws and fangs tore into him. Boone watched, silent, as the beast ripped down the man who had brought death to so many. When it was over, McGraw lay broken in the dirt. The lion stood over him, chest heaving, golden eyes finding Boone's once more. No malice, no fear, only recognition. Then, from the darkness, more eyes glowed. 1, 2, 3. A pride stepped into the firelight. Lionesses, lean and fierce, tails twitching. They circled Boone's men, not with hunger, but with purpose. The wilderness had come to witness justice. The pride's gift, silence, fell. The outlaws who remained dropped weapons, trembling before tooth and claw. Anders disarmed them, boots crunching in the dirt, but his eyes never left the lions. He muttered, "What in God's name?" Boone holstered his gun slow, never breaking gaze with the pride. "Sometimes," he said, voice rough with awe, "the wild remembers." The lion he had saved stepped forward, brushing close enough Boone could feel its heat. Then it turned, not on him, but on the women by the wagons. With one swipe of its paw, it cut the ropes. The captives cried out, scrambling free, rushing into the arms of the posse. The lion looked back once at Boone, a sound deep in its chest, something between a growl and a purr. Then it turned, padding into the night. The pride followed, silent shadows melting into wilderness. Only Boone remained staring after them, the hairs on his neck raised. He had pulled one lion from death, and now the pride had answered with life. A circle closed by claws and blood, an aftermath by dawn. McGraw's gang was shattered. Survivors bound, captives freed, Dustwood safe. For now. Boone rode back with Anders, the boy, and the weary posse, silence heavy, but hearts burning with what they had witnessed. In town, folk asked how the ranger had beaten McGraw, how he'd pulled victory from slaughter. Boone said little. Men wanted tales of bullets and bravery, not of lions stalking through firelight. The truth was stranger than legend, and sometimes, Boone thought, it was better that way. But when he rode out again, alone on Thunder, the horizon wide before him, he felt eyes on his back. Watching, guarding. Somewhere in the wild, the pride still roamed. And Boone knew, when the West forgot its balance, when blood spilled too freely, the wild would remember. He touched his hat brim to the wind, voice low. "Till we meet again, old friend." The stallion carried him into the rising sun. Behind him, Dustwood stirred to life. Ahead, the frontier rolled endless, filled with danger, law, and the roar of wild justice.